Hey there, Angela Mosley here with Modern Fit Moms. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about something that is often missed when it comes to healing diastasis recti, eliminating leaks, and reversing prolapse symptoms. We're going to talk about the upper body, but not the upper body in the sense of building strong biceps. We're going to talk about the thoracic spine and rib cage mobility. Now, I know that you are familiar with diaphragmatic breathing, but in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how the impact of our upper body, specifically the T-spine, rib cage mobility, affects prolapse healing, diastasis recti, and those accidental leaks. It's very important that we look at the upper body and instead of just focusing on the pelvic floor. Many women will just focus on the pelvic floor when they have prolapse or leaking and not even think twice about the upper body. But today's video, I'm going to walk you through my step-by-step method that I give my clients, myself, and inside my programs to help you start to eliminate those leaks, reverse prolapse symptoms, and finally heal your diastasis recti. I'm going to show you my 3-step method. If you want to have a full program, a full transformation where you can do all of the exercises at home, make sure to check out down below the Fit Mom membership for all access to my core and pelvic floor and strength training programs. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the very first thing that we need to talk about is building awareness and pressure management. You can do all the exercises in the world, but if you don't learn how to manage your pressure, then all of the exercises aren't going to work. It's not going to give you long-term results until we start to manage our pressure well. And that's exactly how the thoracic spine and the rib cage play a role in our healing, is it helps with pressure management. So like I said, many people don't think about the upper body when it comes to the pelvic floor because the pelvic floor is down here and the upper body is up here. But most of the times we create pressure from the top down. So while yes, upper body strength is extremely important for healing prolapse and leaking, we also want to think about the thoracic spine because that's where it's all happening. Right. Diaphragm sits in our rib cage, and if we don't have good rib cage mobility, we don't have good thoracic spine mobility, or if we have a rib flare, which make sure to check out my rib flare video, then this is going to disrupt that natural breathing pattern. So real quick, diaphragm sits right underneath the rib cage, and then the pelvic floor is here. So top hand is diaphragm, bottom hand is the pelvic floor. When we inhale, the diaphragm pulls the oxygen in and it flattens out. Okay, so on the inhale, our diaphragm is supposed to flatten out. As the diaphragm flattens out, all of the pressure in the abdominal cavity pushes down and into the pelvic floor. But if we have a broken system or a broken umbrella in the rib cage and the T-spine, then that pressure is going to go somewhere else, right? So normally we have that 360-degree pattern of pressure. And when we have a nice smooth pattern, then we can have even pressure all around. But when we don't have a nice smooth pressure system, then all of that pressure is either going to go out onto the abdomen for diastasis recti or down into the pelvic floor for leaking and prolapse. And so we need to look at our pressure points and where the pressure is coming from. So if we have kinks in our system, such as kinks in the back like this balloon, all of that pressure for the tightness in the back is going to push that pressure forward. This can play a role in rib flare. It can play a role in diastasis recti. And so then all this pressure has to go somewhere. Same thing if you have pressure from the top, such as like rib gripping or upper ab gripping, all of that pressure from up top has to go somewhere else. And so the reason I'm talking about this is because when we breathe, we create pressure. As we inhale, we create pressure within the system. And that pressure and the inhale is supposed to go all the way around. But when we have kinks in the system, specifically in the rib cage and the thoracic spine, then that pressure basically goes straight down into your pelvic floor or straight out onto the abdomen. But when we fix or correct the pressure and we get rid of the tightness and we increase mobilization or increase mobility within the rib cage and within the T-spine, then it can go smoothly up and down, right? And so that's why today I want to show you my 3-step process on how to relieve some tension that might be happening within the body, work on creating that nice pressure system all the way around so that you now have even pressure and it's not going just straight down on the pelvic floor or straight out on the abdomen. And then you can start to see a shift and change in your core and your pelvic floor. Okay, so the very first thing what we want to do is we want to look to see where the pressure is. Where is there tension within the body? And so you can have a couple different places that you might have tension. Today, we're going to just specifically talk about the T-spine. So as I showed you, if you have tension in the back of the rib cage, this is going to push pressure out and down. So sometimes this can look like a flared rib. So your ribs could be flared up. And so again, that's going to mess up the pressure of your breathing down and in. And so all of that pressure is going to go out onto the abdomen and the front of your pelvic floor, which is going to end up with leaks and potentially cystocele prolapse, which is a bladder prolapse. So we have to fix that pressure back here. And so while this is not like an end all be all, one thing I do like to do is some release work prior to my breathing. So the very first step is release work. Then we breathe, then we mobilize, and then we can go into some lengthening or stretching at the end of our workout. So it's 4 different things that we're going to do today. So if you have a foam roller, you want to grab it. If you have a lacrosse ball or a ball that you can use, you'll want to grab that. Okay, so I'm going to start with the foam roller, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out on the back. So I'm going to come on to the side, and you create the pressure here. You create the tension. So you create as much pressure as you need, but I very importantly want you to think about breathing through this, because if we don't focus on our breath and we get anxious or we feel a spot that feels really sticky, then our body actually will clench up even more, and that'll do opposite of what we want. So we really want to move through this a little bit slow. So you can use the foam roller to just roll on the back and get any tight muscles back here that could be preventing you from getting that good 360-degree expansion. You know your body best, and you know where the tension is at, so you can roll out whatever feels good for you. Maybe it's up near your armpit area, or maybe it's near the rib cage, and you just want to roll around. Again, you're in charge of this, right? You control how much tension or pressure you use. All right, so I would say anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds if you're using the foam roller. That's one way you could do that. You can also come on straight onto the back as well and just roll out on the back, okay? So you can choose which option works best for you, what feels good in your body, and where you can really feel a nice, good release. So you can do on the side, then you can do just straight along. 30 to 60 seconds each side to loosen things up. Now, if you don't have a foam roller, but you have a ball, or maybe you have a foam roller, but you would much rather get the ball, you're going to place the ball outside the spine, and you can roll on the back. You can roll all the way up. You can roll side to side. You can get underneath your shoulder blades, anywhere that you might feel like you have tension that's shoving that rib cage forward. You can also roll on the shoulders as well on the wall if that feels good for you, especially if you're feeling some tension there. If you sit at a desk or you're really stressed out and you're holding tension, because that tension up top, like I said, is going to push pressure down either into the abdomen or down into the pelvic floor. So that's kind of just our first step, is we want to release any tight muscles in the body right before we go into our breathing. So now what we're going to do is we've rolled it out. So 30 to 60 seconds, give it a try, pause this video, and then come back when you're ready for the next step. Okay, so the very next step is really just building awareness. So this first exercise I'm going to show you is just helping you to build awareness within your rib cage. Then I'm going to show you 2 exercises. Depending on where you have tension in your body, you're going to choose one or the other, or if you feel comfortable with it and you have time, you can do both. So you're going to grab yourself either a long resistance band or a men's tie or a yoga strap, something that you can wrap around your rib cage, and you are not pulling very tight on it. It's just there to build awareness. So I want you to grab on the opposite hands and pull across the body. Now, the idea is that we've released the tension, so now we should be able to get a decent expansion in the rib cage. So we want to think front expansion, side expansion, and back expansion of the rib cage, because that'll tell us that our diaphragm is expanding in all the way around, which we are trying to get rid of those kinks, because when we get rid of those kinks, then we have a better pressure management system, and all of the pressure from our breath isn't just going to go straight down into the pelvic floor or the abdomen. It's going to be spread out nice and easy. So I want you to think inhale through the nose, and you can think about suctioning the tongue to the roof of your mouth. So like click it and then suck it and pull it back. You want to think coming tall through your spine, and you're going to inhale for about 4 counts through the nose. And I want you to feel the expansion with the rib and with the band. So our goal is that you can feel that expansion against the band, because it's not like super tight, but there's some resistance so that you can feel that expansion. And then as you exhale, you want to think about exhaling all the way out from your mouth. For starters, I'm just going to have you have your mouth nice and open and wide as you fully exhale. And then once you've done that, you're going to repeat it about 4 more times, so 5 total breaths, okay? So let's go ahead and do this together. So I want you to think inhale through the nose, so go ahead, inhale, and then exhale. So what you should have felt is you should have felt the expansion of the rib cage against the band, and then a breath going down into the pelvic floor. And then as you exhaled, everything comes back down and in. So again, expansion on the breath, on the inhale, and then everything comes back down and in on the exhale. Now you're going to do that about 5 times-ish to just familiarize yourself with it. I do recommend that you record yourself breathing so you can see a literal expansion of the rib cage. Okay, so now that you've built your awareness on that rib cage expansion, we want to support it with certain positions to help our body really work towards that tension that's holding us back. So if you have maybe a one-sided rib flare, or maybe you have one rib that is flared to the front, then side lying breathing is going to do some wonders for our body. It's going to do wonders for any rib cage expansion, but just giving you some ideas on personalization that you can do. So a couple things that you can do: you can use a yoga block, or you can use a pillow. I recommend, or not a pillow, a Pilates ball. You could also use a pillow as well. I recommend starting with something soft at first, and then you can move into the yoga block. So what you're going to do is literally place the ball underneath your rib cage, and you're going to lie down. Now you can use the pillow for head support, or you can come down. You can bring those knees up towards you so you get more expansion in the back. You're going to do that same breathing, but this time the pressure from the ball is going to force the pressure into this rib cage up top. And the idea is that we focus on one rib cage at a time to really get that expansion, especially if you feel like you're really not getting that lateral rib expansion. This is such a great exercise to get more lateral rib cage mobility while doing it on the mat. So same idea. You want to think inhale through the nose for about 4 count, and exhale, thinking about the ribs just melting over the ball on the exhale. So you want to think that the ball is pressing against, and so this is creating pressure, right, to push laterally the breath into the opposite rib cage. So you want to do about 5 breaths on each side, 2 to 3 sets if you have time for it. If you are just choosing one exercise, you'll do 2 to 3 sets. But if you're going to do all 3 of the exercises, then you can just simply do 1 set of each, 5 breaths each, okay? Next, after that, is back expansion for the rib cage, because like I said, if you have tightness in the back, that's going to shove the rib cage forward. That's going to put all of the pressure out on your abdomen and down into the front of the pelvic floor, which could be why you're experiencing leaking. So we really want to address breathing in this spot here in the back. So a couple of things that you can do. You can place the ball underneath the rib cage. You're going to focus more on one side at a time. Or you can place the pillow on the rib cage if you want to. If you're short on time and you're like, you know what, Ange, I don't have time to do both sides, you can use the pillow, or you can come down onto the foam roller and do more of what's called a crocodile breathing. And so you're going to basically compress the front, so you can play around with where you put it. You can use a couple different props, one underneath the hip and then one up here up top to really push the rib cage back. All right, so I'm going to show you in that child's pose position so that you can get an idea. All right, but you really can do any of those. So what you're doing is you're compressing the front. So just like we compressed the lateral rib cage, which shoved the breath and the pressure to the side, now we're compressing the front of the body so that all of the breath has to go here. You can use as many props as you need for comfort, and you can try palms up or palms down, you decide. But it's that same concept. You want to think about inhaling through your nose for 4 counts, and as you inhale, you should feel expansion in the back of the rib cage. And then as you exhale, those ribs should come down and back. So this position would be really great for someone that has ribs that are flared forward to the front. Because what's that telling me is that you have compression in the back. Maybe it's your psoas that's pulling the rib cage down. And so when you pull from the back of the rib cage, that's going to flare the front of the rib cage, right? And if you have compression, it's just going to push the rib cage forward and front. So that's why doing this rib cage breathing for the back is really going to help pull the rib cage back and open up that space in the back. So again, you want to think 4 counts in, suction the tongue to the roof of the mouth, and then you want to have that nice long full exhale. Like I said, I like to start with an open mouth exhale to allow the breath to come all the way out. Once you've done that, then we're going to go into some mobility work. So we're increasing mobility with our breath, but now we're going to add in some movement to really get that rib cage to go back into its spot and to really support our body. Okay, so now that we've done our breathing, now we're going to add in some mobility within the T-spine and mobility within the rib cage. So we're going to start on a hands and knees position, and we're going to start with a super basic cat-cow. All right, so I do want you to find maybe a wall that you can kind of pay attention to, and I want you to record yourself to see where you might have stuck spots in your cat-cow. Cat-cow is such a great exercise for the pelvic floor alone, but also great for that T-spine to increase that mobility. Many of us are either stuck in this position, or maybe we have more of a flat back because of compression, or maybe we're really stuck in that anterior pelvic tilt. Being able to move the spine in this position can really help increase that mobility and help with that pressure management. So you're going to think hands under shoulders. You're just pushing through the floor to push the body away. You can also place your feet up against a wall or a bench or something, or you can even place a big yoga ball, one of those big bounce balls, behind your bum against the wall. That can help from your hips shifting back and forward. So again, this is where you would want to record yourself to see what your body is doing. All right, so neck is long like a turtle popping out of its shell. Push the floor away. You're going to inhale very slowly. So you're starting at the tailbone, right? So the tailbone is lifting, and you're inhaling up and then exhaling, thinking about that pubic bone coming up towards the spine and rounding. So again, inhaling, doing it very slowly, and then exhaling all the way up. So you're again going to do that. You're going to record yourself to see what's going on. We want to see movement within the whole spine. We want to see movement within that lumbar spine. We want to see movement within the thoracic spine. Because we just did some release work, we didn't do a full workout, but we do the release work. Then we go into our breathing. You should be able to see a great difference within your ability to move through that cat-cow. Now, here's a test you can do. You can record yourself before you do all of this. Record your cat-cow. Like I said, use something on the wall that you can record. So like say I have this line here, you can kind of see, okay, is my back moving? Is my T-spine moving? Do it before you do the release work, before you do the breathing, and then do it again afterwards. Record yourself to see if you notice any changes. Because sometimes we just need 2 video comparisons to see how much more mobility we have within our body. So you can do that. You can focus on just the lumbar spine, or you can focus on just the T-spine, depending on where your body is stuck and where you might feel a little bit rigid. But you'll do about 5 to 8 reps for that cat-cow to increase that mobility. Then we want to do lateral rib cage mobility with some movement. So I personally love using a foam roller because this really helps me to reach a little bit better. So I want you to think this hand, so my right hand is going to come, we're going to come back into that hands and knees. I'm going to place my opposite hand on the foam roller. You can also place a yoga block or something in between your legs if you really struggle with some core activation to keep those hips nice and still, because we're really focusing on that rib cage mobility. I'm going to press the floor away, so pressing through my fingertips, neck is nice and long, and I'm going to slowly but surely reach my hand through. And then I'm going to focus on that breathing. So I might pause for a moment. I'm going to breathe into both sides of my rib cage. And then as I exhale, I might reach a little bit more. But notice that I'm not letting my chest collapse. So I'm not collapsing under to get down. I'm keeping this hand nice and strong, pushing the floor away while I maintain. And I want to think about bringing this rib towards that other side as I reach, but I'm not collapsing in my chest. And I'm focusing on my breathing, and I'm reaching. And then I reach as I exhale. So I'm pushing that floor away, right? So you're going to want to do 5 to 8 reps on each side for that lateral rib cage mobility. So those are 2 of my favorite exercises that I love to do to add in that movement component right after we've done our breathing. Okay, so we've worked on release work, we've worked on our breathing, and then we've worked on mobility. You can put all of that as part of your warm-up before you go into your workouts, and then we want to add on some stretching and breathing at the end of our workout once we've completed it all. So one thing I love is just a super basic thread the needle, but I'm holding the thread the needle. So you're going to come in, so similar to that foam roller, you're going to reach the arm up towards the ceiling and you're going to needle it through, okay? You can take this opposite hand, reach out in front, or you can place it on your hip. Now the idea is to get some rib cage expansion here. So you can think about either holding here or out in front. This hand, I want you to think about pressing into the floor to push up. Now I really want you to focus on your breathing here, slowing down, because it's at the end of your cool down, at the end of your workout. And you're just really focusing on that expansion of the breath and a nice gentle exhale. Once you're done, push the floor away and then go into the other side. Now you can focus on your breath reps here, or you can just, do about 30 seconds on each side. This is really just a time for you to kind of calm down, open up the rib cage, and allow you to cool down from your workout. The other exercise that I absolutely love, one of my favorites, especially for those of you that sit at a desk all day or you are feeding baby hunched over, this is a great exercise. So you're going to place your elbows on a bench, couch, or chair, anything that can elevate. You're going to bring those knees back, and I want you to think about dropping your chest down, and you can think about pressing your elbows into the bench and dragging back. You can bring your hands just behind your neck. You can either keep your head on the bench or you can drop the head down for more expansion. Now you might feel, if you have some tight shoulders, tight chest, you'll feel some of that restriction possibly within the shoulders. And I just want you, just like we did with that thread the needle, I want you to focus on breathing here. So thinking about breathing into the rib cage. So you'll hold that for about a minute if you want at the end of your workout. I love both these exercises. I incorporate them into my cool downs today for my members and for my clients. Feels so good. It's a great way to end the workout, but also to continue to improve that rib cage expansion and that rib cage mobility and breathing. All right, so that was it. So like I said, you don't have to do the release work. It's just there as an option. It can be very beneficial, especially if you have tightness. So you do your release work first, then you'll go into your breathing exercises. You can do all 3 breathing exercises, or you can do 2 to 3 sets of just one breathing exercise, about 5 reps. Then you'll go into some mobility work, and then you would head into your workout, okay? So you do, if you're doing a full body workout, you do some hip mobility, your typical warm up that you might do, and then you can end with those 2 stretches. And that should help improve thoracic and rib cage mobility to help start eliminating leaks and prolapse and diastasis recti. Like I said, if you are looking for a full transformation 90-day program, make sure to check out the details below through the Fit Mom membership. You'll get access to all of my core and pelvic floor programs, along with all of my strength training programs built for moms to work out at home while navigating prolapse, leaking, and diastasis recti. And I'll see you in the next video.